Mr. Cody Alexander of Match Quarters. Let's pretend I'm the general manager of an NFL front office, and I come to you and I say, I'm sick of my team kicking field goals, running on 2nd and 7. I want Matt Stafford 5,000 yards, Eli Manning 50 touchdowns. I want that back. Sick of this cell coverage. I'm hiring you as an outside passing game consultant. How do I get back there? How do I get back to 4,000 passing yards being the expectation for any quarterback who's any good?
Well, I think first it's going to take volume, and your run game. This is going to sound counterintuitive, but your run game is going to need to be actually pretty decent. This isn't going to be college football inside zone. Hopefully we can get it, 4 yards. You're really going to have a run game that's dangerous so you can pull people back towards the box. I think that's one of the things that in these kind of shell coverages, these too high systems, you've got to start draining that safety down. You got to start bringing the safety down. The only way you can do that is to establish a real run game on early downs. And as though that sounds counterintuitive, okay, well, but I'm trying to get to 4,000 yards passing. I'm trying to get to 5,000 yards passing. What that's going to do is that's going to be able to isolate corners. You're going to be able to be outside. I think really looking at this now, outside isolation is going to come back in vogue because you're going to have so many safeties kind of packed in. You're going to have to be able to find that. I think that's why when you watch a guy like a Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings, a lot of dagger routes back inside, getting Justin Jefferson going vertical, get Addison going vertical, and then we're going to undercut him, creating these easy throws over the middle. I think play action wise, look at the offenses that are doing really, really well passing the ball. It's going to be the Chiefs. You've got the Rams. You've got the Lions are doing really well. And the reason why they're able to do that is because they're bringing a lot of cross action. So I'm going to bring guys back across, and then I'm going to also run somebody across, and we're going to create layers to it. That's why I think one of the big concepts that are being talked about right now is the wave concept, which the wave concept is built off of the old school West Coast Yankee, or a lot of people refer to it as a cross country. So I've got a post and I've got a Dover or a deep over route. Well, I'm going to add another layer into it. I'm going to actually run about 2 post routes and another crossing route underneath it. I'm going to create a 3-layer system, but it's going to be high. It's not going to be low. And it's not just going to become a two-man route.
You're forcing you're forcing the 2 safeties to make a decision.
Yes.
And so either one of the posts will be open,
yes,
or the underneath crosser.
Yep. So all I'm doing is adding one extra layer to that Yankee concept so that we can get somebody open. Most people will tell you the cross country concepts. I think everybody kind of generally knows how to cover it. Corners fall off. We're going to slingshot to the middle, yada, yada, condense set. Okay. Offense are like, okay, what if I add an extra guy in there? How are you going to defend that? Double post just in general is not fun to cover. And now you're doing a double post with a deep over on the other side. I think now we have these mesh risers. You're starting to get mesh and then shoot up the pipe in the middle. All these things that we thought at one point were just 7-on-7 routes are actually becoming viable and can be viable in the NFL once you add it to play action, condensed routes, and then start adding the protection value in there. So to me, that's where if I want to get back to the passing game, I'm going to have to be super creative. And I'm going to have to kind of go back to some old school ways because we're going to start seeing more spot drops. So more West Coast concepts, more hitting the spot, take the deep intermediate, don't necessarily be the check down Charlies that we're starting to see now. That's really how you would get back to it.
No, I was going to say, is some of that quarterbacks are actually just like afraid to throw those, that like some quarterbacks or maybe even offensive coordinators don't trust their, all right, my quarterback is Daniel Jones. My quarterback is Will Levis. I mean, I can call that play. I like the play. I think the play could do its job, but I don't trust my quarterback to make the throw with anticipation because either the safety is going to bait him into the wrong throw, or if I give him the option for the 7-yard crosser, he's going to take that every time because he's not going to throw a pick doing that, and I'm not going to get the yards I need.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Football is so cyclical in nature, and time is a flat circle. So this was the whole problem with the West Coast offense, just in general, and then you have Brett Favre come in and go, well, why can't I throw the alert?
Why can't I throw it over?
Right. I want to throw so the alert is the deep pass, right? So if you look at any West Coast playbook, there's always like a primary read, secondary read, and then you always have an alert just in case the guy's like butt naked running across the field. Go ahead and throw it to him, right? Well, Favre comes in and goes, well, why can't I just throw that? And then the coaches were like, okay, yeah, okay. Start with the top and work down. Well, then you have a guy like Leach who comes in and was like, well, why don't we just throw the alert first? And so then that's where kind of that air raid system comes in. Then you get Bryles who comes in and goes, well, yeah, that's great. But what if we just kind of widened everybody out and we did everything deep choice and we always only throw deep? Or the only short passes we have are like access throws or perimeter screens. I think the NFL, it got to that point where we had kind of that everything was a vertical column outside that basically the Sid Gilman stuff. And then you have the West Coast. And so Favre changed that. Well, then what did defenses do? They go, okay, well, we'll play everything top down. And I thought you saw a little bit in the Super Bowl, if you remember, you finally saw the Chiefs run Xavier Worthy just right down the pipe.
I can't even really
And
talk about
Mahomes
this,
finally
man.
threw it. And you're like, where has that been? And I think we're going to get back to that, where it's just like, look, at some point, we just got to start throwing the ball. Because all these quarterbacks, like especially like Mahomes, Burrow, they're
Well,
they do not.
Burrow is one of the few guys who's not afraid to do it.
Yes, because
Burrow
he's
is one of the
got
few guys who's just like,
right.
sure, whatever, man. Like I'll chuck it.
And I think that has more to do with the roster. Because if you talk about like T. Higgins may be one of the better jump ball guys out there now.
Sure.
And then Jamar Chase is built like a running back. He'll just go bowl you over and go get it. I think we're seeing what they're trying to do with the Steelers with DK Metcalf. Like, look, man, just go ball getter. So to me, I think that we're going to start getting back to where it's like, look, at some point, the analytics may tell us that we don't need to do this, but at some point, like we've got to move the ball down the field. We've got to start having explosive passes.
Well, yeah, I mean, that has been an annoying thing about some of the analytics revolution is like, yeah, passing is better than running, but it leads to a lot of like 6-yard completions. I kind of feel like in a way, defensive coordinators have sort of weaponized that by like a lot of these young quarterbacks are so happy to complete 71% of their passes, but for 6.8 YPA, and
Right.
it's like, all right, man. Like, what's actually kind of funny is like Bryce Young, actually an example of this last year. He's so bad trying to be a point and click quarterback. Like, remember when they benched him, people were like, oh, the Dolphins should trade for him. Really good
Right.
understudy to Mike McDaniel. It's like, no, actually, that's not going to work at all. Because when Bryce Young was good at Bama, and then when he was good at the tail end of last year, it was, all right, we're getting him out of the pocket. We're letting him read and react. We are letting him kind of create stuff on his own. And I hadn't really thought of this until now, is that some of that is just offensive coordinators just it's also topical now talking about the NBA finals. I wonder if it's kind of like a Rick Carlisle thing too, where some of these OCs are so in love with their own offense and their own play calling that they don't even want to give the quarterback the option. They want to say, you got A, B, and C. And if you don't do that, you're getting cussed out when you come to the sideline.
Yeah, I think that that's the case, and I think that you have kind of that Shanahanification. I
Oh,
don't know.
yeah.
We'll create that word, but of like where everything's OC dominant. I told you to throw it here. If you get this here, well, that's a lot of these kids are coming from a college system where that's how it is. I mean, the whole deal with Caleb Williams, not watching film, not needed. Well, okay. Well, I mean, Lincoln Riley literally is probably telling him, this is your leverage read. If he's high, throw low. If he's low, throw high. If nothing's open, scramble around. Someone will come open. Everybody's going to go vertical. You got a rocket arm. Just throw it down there. We'll figure it out. Right. And I think like that's kind of these kids are just like you said, like they're so analytics driven where it's like, we'll just check it down. Like at least just get a completion. You didn't throw a pick. But I do, you talk about Bryce Young. Look what the Panthers went and did, right? They got the Ted McMillan, they got Xavier Legette, and they got Adam Thielen. Those guys are all big receivers, right?
Yeah.
And then behind them, you got the Coker kid, who is not tiny. They do have their little scat guy and Jimmy Horn, but like you go and look at it, like their 4 primary receivers are big dudes. Then they got 2 flex tight ends that are big dudes. So it's like, look, we're going to have you throw it. Look, we'll lean into it. I think you also mentioned too, these dash concepts are basically these kind of half boot concepts to move these guys. That's another way, going back to your
My
original
favorite
question.
play in NCAA 25, the dash with the option to just run with the quarterback. I mean, it's beautiful. It's either a first down or like 7 yards rushing every time.
Right, exactly. And so like you're seeing this come back, bigger physical receivers are coming back. Like, I just think that there's a lot to be said about sometimes, like, I think hopefully we can get back to less control, let the quarterbacks throw the ball down the field, because that's really the only way you're going to do it is if you throw the ball down the field.
All right. Well, one of the symptoms of that is the cheat motion. This was like a huge topic, actually, funnily enough, after like the first 2 weeks of the season last year, because Clint Kubiak and the Saints, I think they scored 98 points in weeks 1 and weeks 2 last year, and then everyone on the entire Shaheed got hurt, Olave got hurt, Carr got hurt. Everyone on their offensive line
Yes,
died, which was unfortunate because they were like kind of a fun
they
offense to
were.
watch. And then Clint Kubiak gets sent out of the building. Sucks for him because he probably would have been a head coach had
Right.
everyone
Yeah.
not gotten injured. And then the Dolphins were big on the cheat motion until I think Mike McDaniel just gave up last year. I think he was just like,
Yeah.
I got nothing here. Chiefs really big on it. It seems like as a non-ball knower, it seems like why wouldn't every coach just do this all the time? If I can get my guy moving when he gets the ball and the defense, like why would I not just run my slot guy like a CFL guy across the formation every time? I mean, it's like, because as a defense, what do you do? I mean, and you just give away your coverage. How do you disguise your coverage against cheat motion? I don't even know that. Let's start there.
Well, cheat motion. So you're talking about 2 different modes. Cheat motion
Yeah,
is where I start in a cluster and I push out really
right.
quickly. Defense has pretty much figured that out really quickly. Where we're basically just going to check to a palms. If you can catch them in palms is to read or cover 2. If you can catch them in a single high coverage, you can still do a little bit of things, but it's a little bit trickier than that. What you were talking about though, the jet motion coming across. It actually, offenses think they're really tricky about this, but it's not as tricky as you think. If the quarterback snaps the ball before he crosses the midpoint line, that guy's going flat. If the quarterback snaps the ball as the guy is exiting the tackle box, that's when it turns up. And so defenses have been able to kind of adjust to that as well. The corners kind of understand, hey, I'm getting jet motion. Where's the ball being snapped? If it's outside the tackle box, I know he's going to turn up. So I'm just going to go ahead and bail. That's where you're starting to get a lot of these from that, a lot of these sit routes out of that, and then actually running dagger off of these. So it's jet motion. He wheels it and pivots, and then you're getting that kind of short dig back in. So offenses are clever enough that they're starting to figure out the defenses know. But in terms of just overall, how do you do this? This is why spot drop zones are coming back in vogue, or at least like super zone-ish match coverages, because you're getting it to where now we're just going to pull the chain, which does not lend itself very much to kind of matchup wise. Offenses, if they know you're just going to pull the chain, they can kind of manipulate matchups. NFL is really difficult with this because you play in the middle of the field so much. There really is no field boundary. But the caveat is we're seeing more field boundary defenses at the NFL level, which is really interesting to me because you don't have it, but you're getting nickels to the field and you're getting kind of your linebacker then again away from that. And so it's kind of messing with offenses and how they do that. The other thing that you're getting too is because we're getting more spot drop, we can run what's called a man indicator zone. And what that means is you're essentially on a number system. And
Okay.
I have number 1, I have number 2, I have number 3. If that guy motions, I move across with him and I just take over the number that I end up. It's usually number 2 or 3. If it's a DB and I move to a linebacker, I'm going to have the deep half. If I move, if it's DBs, then we can just kind of push it out. Well, what you end up doing is, because it's a number system and we're just getting to a spot, I'm not necessarily having to match anything, we can go ahead and make it look like man coverage. And so that's kind of where defenses have really become. I've heard a lot of people asking like, hey, have you seen this with man indicator zone? I think that's a trend within the NFL that people are starting to kind of trying to figure out. Like, we want to give the illusion of man, but we're really playing zone. So that's kind of the two ways that you're seeing the cheat motion. Basically, we're going to run cover 2 to it. If you get jet motion, we're going to read the actual tempo and where the ball is snapped to know where the coverage needs to be, or we're going to go man indicator zones in order to kind of trick the offense into thinking, because you have all these resets, right? Running backs out, reset it. The Chiefs, you mentioned them. What they do the best is with Kelsey. I call them these slow motions.
Oh, yes.
Where he
Yes.
just kind of walks. He
He's just
kind of
hanging
walks
out.
to get into. So it's a basic formation, and then he's just gonna walk to create a stack. And they're just really trying to figure out what the leverage piece is. Are you going to zone it? Are you going to man it? Are you going to play, who's going to be man, who's going to be zone, like how that's going to fit? To me, why more teams don't do that, I don't know, because it really, those slow motions give the defense enough time to check, which allows the offense to then see the check in real time and be able to play off it. They did a great job against it, not this time with the Eagles, but the last time they were able to get him to check man every time, and then Kelsey just killed him in the red zone.
They are pretty good at that. I mean, Andy Reid, it's like even when the Chiefs are bad or not, I think they scored the 13th most points in the NFL last year. He still adds lots of wrinkles that are
efficiency monster is what I call them. They're so efficient in what they do. It's not sexy. It's like watching like a really good college basketball offense that'll just like drain the clock, like it's possession
Wisconsin
based.
men's basketball
Yes.
before whoever their coach is now. I think the old BYU coach is their coach now, but that
3 passes and then you get it. Then make sure we get our 3 passes and then take a layup or a 3-pointer, right? Like it's just just
all right. I have this idea. So last year in the NFL, 43.5 points scored per game on offense. That's down from 2020, 2021. The average is 49.5. It's the first time in like the last 15 years that rushing plays were positive EPA per play. Pretty crazy.
Yes.
But I have this idea that I think you'll be able to give me the right answer. You know what defensive guys hate? Getting ran on.
Yes.
You know what a defensive coach hates? Giving up 6 yards a pop to Kareem Hunt, to Kenneth Gainwell, to Rashad White. And I wonder if one of the things that'll happen, whether defensive play callers realize it or not, is their inherent hatred of just letting the other team set the pins up and knock them down because they're playing dime as their base personnel is, man, I kind of don't care if we're winning. I kind of don't care if this strategy puts a lid on Joe Burrow. I kind of don't care if Trevor Lawrence is really, struggling against us, but we're losing the game, because I hate watching Travis Etienne just rack up 112 yards against me. Do you think that I'm totally crazy that we might see 8 men in the box on second down every once? Actually we took out our defense. Actually we're playing a 3-tech. We got 2 nose tackles in there. I don't know. It is in the back of my mind, because my best friend growing up was a defensive coordinator. He's a special teams coordinator now at Eastern Michigan. And I know I've been talking to him about this, and he says same thing. Man, I hate watching our defense get ran on. Even when we win, I hate it.
I think here's that. I think that you are seeing some of the older coaches very excited about what happened last year in the NFL. I don't think that it's sustainable. I think if you talk to, I'm 39, about to be 40. Guys in my generation are not afraid of a 4-yard run. Mm-hmm. Now, if you start hammering us with 6, 7, 10, 15 chunk plays, now I'm a little concerned. Now you're forcing my hand. I think what's going on is because we're playing so much too high shell, that you're getting these light boxes. You're getting guys in situations that offenses are now like, fine, we'll run the ball. I know it's not it's not exciting, but we're going to run the ball a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and do it. I think because here's the thing about the NFL that's different than college. Is like a guy like Lincoln Riley can be like, well, if you get this, you got to run the ball. And he can say that, and that's great, but he's going to throw the ball like 40 times a game. We already know that.
Right.
Like he's going to get his schemes in because
Brett Coleman tweeted this the other day. It was like seconds to snap, like college offenses. It's like 8.5 seconds to the snap, and NFL offenses, it's like 12.5, or maybe I have that in reverse. But
Yeah.
the point of it was college coaches will just waste the play. They'll be
Yep.
like, it's 2nd and 8. Like, what if you want to try and throw a deep ball? Sure, it's whatever, but it's probably fine. NFL coach is never going to give you that freedom.
No, and so that's where I was headed with this, is that the NFL is so curated, and it's these plays are precious because I'm getting maybe 60 to 65 of them, where in a college game I'm getting 85 to 90, maybe even 100 if we're both playing tempo and we're both throwing the ball. So I am not going to sit here and just be like, well, we put this in practice, I want to see it, like, let's just put it on tape.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that at the NFL level. You also, because of that, if you're going to load the box, they're going to throw the ball. If you're going to sit there and too high and you're going to give them a 6-man box and it's a neutral box, like, they're going to attack that because it's like we feel like we have an advantage on that. I think that's where that cat and mouse game really at the NFL level is personnel wise, of can we survive in base if you come out in 11 personnel? Right? Can we survive in nickel, because our nickel can actually fit the run? Like, we have a Derwin James. That's why I think we're having a run on 3 safeties. It used to be who's your third corner. Now it's, well, who's your third safety? Who's the safety that's going to be able to go down? You start looking at it. The Texans just paid Petrie, who is probably one of the best safety nickels. People forget he can play deep. He did his first year in the league. He played deep, but then he's just so valuable at nickel. You also see too with Derwin James playing more at the box. Well, that's why they went and traded and got Molden, because now Molden and Gilman can both be cover safeties, and we have a box safety now that we can bring down. So I think you start looking at some of these guys. Hamilton's another example with the Ravens, Budda Baker with the Cardinals. I'm naming all these defenses, and it's like, oh yeah, all these guys. Okay, go look at what Seattle did in the draft. Why did they take that kid from South Carolina? Because he's 220 pounds and he can play near the box. And what has he done off camp?
Crazy player, Nick
Right.
Emenori. Yeah.
And if you need him, he can play deep. But if you don't, like Jeremy Chin with the Commanders last year, Duggar and Jabril Peppers, hell, they got 2 guys that can play both sides. So to me, I can start going down the list, and it's like, oh, like, look at the Broncos. Why did the Broncos go get Jahdae Barron? Well, because he's a hybrid guy. He can play the nickel and he can play deep. He can play corner if you need him to. He can play anything. He's kind of like Molden with the Chargers. So it's like, you start really looking into this, and it starts making sense. And the reason why is what you just said. I have to play sub packages. But if I can't give you 6 yards a pop. How can I get that down to 4, maybe 3, and force you to drive the field and get into a 12 to 15 play drive? Because I know you're going to make a mistake. You're going to have either a procedure penalty, someone's going to bust.
Oh yeah, 15 play drive. I mean, no one enjoys that. Defense hates it. Offense hates it. Coordinator, both sides are just like, enough already. Like,
yes,
stop. Yeah.
So that to me is where you've kind of, what to your point, is where we're starting to see roster construction be a little bit different. Is it I need a hybrid linebacker. I need guys that can do something more at if you're a safety, can you play nickel? If you're a corner, can you play nickel? And if you can, then now we can do some different things, and we can be physical even when we're in our sub packages.
Okay, so what is the drawback to playing a fit defensive back who's 220 pounds or 230? Like, is it that those guys can just get smoked deep, or it's that they can't hang with slot wide receivers? Like, if I'm in defense, why would I not want my third safety or my third corner, however you want to like, why would I not want that guy to be 230?
Well, I think it's really just when you get 11 per, you play a team like the Bengals. I don't really want Derwin James playing on top of the slot. Like Yoshi Boss. I don't want him on Yoshi Boss. I don't want him on Chase. I want to be able to have a third corner. That's why I think now you're starting to see 2 different rooms within a room. Is that you have a safety room, but then there's also a nickel that's involved in that. You have a corner room, but there's also a nickel that's involved in that. I think even too, like with defensive linemen, you see this with Seattle. Why would they go get DeMarcus Lawrence if they're not going to run more 4 downs? Well, if they're going to still be a kind of a hybrid front, now I have a big 5, and now I have an edge that I can play. So now we can get into some of these things. If you go and look at what Seattle did last year, when Witherspoon was playing the nickel, they moved Leonard Williams out to play big 5. So now we have a solid edge. You're going to have problems running at our nickel. So I think you're starting to see defenses get a little bit more clever about roster construction. You have to be multiple, but you have to have what I call schematic fluidity, meaning that you have to have it to where we can run our same defense, regardless of who's on the field. I think of it kind of almost like McVay. They run 11 personnel. They can be in 21 personnel because the Winningham kid can line up at fullback and he can actually go block somebody because he's 220 pounds himself. So you're starting to see some of this on the defensive side, like, well, if they can do that, why can't we? And we can now actually kind of do some different things. But it goes down to, you don't want to end up in a situation where you're like the Panthers last year, where you have nobody on your roster. And so you kind of feel like you're stuck, or like you're the Giants and you're like, we have these really two good edge rushers. We have one guy inside. We have the good linebackers. Nobody in the secondary can play. So now we're in trouble. Like you have to kind of have, like, you need a hybrid guy at each level. Like, look at the best defenses. They have a hybrid guy at each level that can kind of do some things. And so that's kind of where we are in roster construction here in the NFL.
All right, this is not. I didn't prepare you for this, and I'm kind of springing it on you. But what would you do with Travis Hunter? Just if we're talking about roster construction and multiplicity, like you know, you're a Jaguars coach, whatever, and you're like, all right, man, we're gonna do what Coach Alexander says with Travis Hunter. How are you deploying him?
I think he needs to spend full time on defense, and then we will give him maybe 30 plays on offense and have certain packages for him. It's easier to package on offense. It's easier to figure out the offense than it is to, hey, what am I doing in this motion check, or what am I doing after this? Like, unless you're just going to play cover one, which you're probably not in the NFL. Like we've already seen that. The Browns did it one year, were really good. The next year, this year, they had to kind of transition off of it. Emerson cratered. Denzel Ward still had a good year, but you're still looking at, like, the consistency of man coverage from year to year is very shoddy, right? Even for a guy like Sauce Gardner, even for a guy like Pat Surtain, one year you look awesome, the next year you look, he might be human. Oh, is he falling off, right? So I think for Hunter, I would have him be trained full time on defense, and then I would have a very specific set of things that I want, or packages that I want, that have some runs in them. So it's not just him running passing routes, but hey, these are the things that I need you to do, and this is what we're willing to do for you. But if you want him to play full time somewhere, have him play full time on defense, and then have him have about 30 plays on offense where you can package it and get him to do some things.
Is that because you think he's a better defensive player, or that would just make his progression as an NFL player better? Like, he can mature as a defensive player, and then he's like good enough on offense that whenever you decide to throw him in there, it's easy. Like, because the offensive stuff, it's like he knows all the route concepts and everything. He can run out to the huddle, and Trevor Lawrence could say, "Hey, this is your assignment on this play." Where it's like defense doesn't work that way, because it's that's interesting.
I think you hit it. Is just, to me, it's very rare to find a top level corner. They're rare, right? It's kind of easy to find a top level receiver. Like, think about it. And now the argument for him is, well, there's a $10 million difference, right?
Yeah, top level receivers get paid more.
Right, but we're sitting here saying that he's going to then be on the same par as AJ Brown, Jettas, or Jamar Chase, AJ Brown. I think so it's like a CeeDee Lamb, right? We're going to say, okay, so to me, you can project him at corner much easier than you can at receiver. Receivers kind of bogged down. We've kind of capped the market there. Everybody basically plays receiver now. So to me, I think if I'm the Jaguars, I'm going to play him at corner, and then we're going to use 30. And then look, if it comes out and he starts really struggling, but he's excelling at receiver, then we just start chipping away on defense, and we slowly move him over. And next thing you know, he's full-time receiver, and we use him on dime packages when we need to play man coverage.
It's just funny because obviously, like, a lot of the conversations I have are about fantasy football, and everyone's like, just toss him out there on third downs on defense. He'll figure it out. You need him full time on offense, 100% of the routes, like sub packet. It's just, it's how you approach it based on your priors is so funny. For whatever it's worth, I think the Jaguars are not going to do what you said.
No,
I think the Jaguars are going to be like, hey man, we just traded up to take this guy at number 2. The fans need to see this guy. He needs to be in on offense, which I hope works out for him. Like obviously, like I hope Travis Hunter's awesome. I'm rooting for him, but it is interesting because you are literally the first person I've heard say he should play corner instead.
Yeah. Well, I'm coming from a coaching side. I also am like, if you really want to look at it, who they hired, they hired a former Flores guy who's going to
Right.
probably blitz a lot and play cover one. If you're going to do that, they have some man coverage corners. It's not like they were good at it last year. They have a decent pass rush. They couldn't figure it out at any level last year, offense or defense. So I'm interested to see how that plan is going to work out. Because if you are just going to say, look, we're going to throw them in on offense and defense, we're just going to play man, then it's just cat coverage. And it's just, do you have your guy? But it limits you in what you can do offensively, which I don't necessarily think spells success over time. So it's almost a short-term gain, long-term pain, where you really want the opposite, which is, short-term pain, long-term gain.
Right. This is a selfish question of me to ask, but what makes Steve Spagnuolo so good? Because like I root for the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs. It's like I don't know, man. This guy gets in every game, and I'm like pretty sure they're gonna lose. And then the biggest play of the game, he just like totally confuses the shit out of the opposing quarterback, and the guy looks like he's never. He's done it to Josh Allen, he's done it to Lamar, he's done it to Burrow, but the only guy he couldn't confuse last year was Jalen Hurts, and that was just because Jalen Hurts just set him up and knocked him down. It's just hard to deal with that guy
Yes.
when he's playing downhill, right? But what makes Spags so good?
I think he's an elite teacher. But it goes back to like Andy Reid. One of the things, if you ever read about Andy Reid, like one of the reason why he is so good with different players is because he's willing to meet the player where they are in terms of like intellectually, learning style. I think Spagnuolo is also the best. Also too, all those guys are homegrown. A lot for most of that defense is homegrown. And I think what you saw last year, sometimes they're in 4 safety packages, which allows you to do a lot of different things because you can get guys moving around. And I think too, the way that he's able to do it, he was ahead of the trend on a lot of different things. He was ahead of the trend on 5-man pressures with quarters behind it. He was ahead of the trends on coverage guys. So he's been ahead of the game, I think, too, because he's willing, because the fundamentals, and you can tell this with the Chiefs, like their fundamentals, like whether it's block recognition, it's attacking blockers and shedding, it's tackling. When your fundamentals are good, when the simple stuff in football is good, you can then be able to be creative. The problem that happens is everybody wants to be creative, but then they forget about the fundamentals. And so then you're basically just have a bunch of really cool stuff, but nobody really knows what they're doing and nobody really can actually execute it. At the end of the day, if I can execute our base defense really well, then we can get weird. And that's where I think Spags is so good. He's also one of the best at timing when to pressure and when not to pressure. And I think he understands your protections. They blitz the corner enough, especially on condensed formations, that it really changes the way that you have to protect. We saw this in the Super Bowl against 49ers. Kittle was actually supposed on the last play that he gets batted down, basically won the game. Kittle actually starts working towards the condensed side because he thinks that there's going to be a pressure. And the Chiefs actually brought it from the other side. They actually brought it from the field. And so you end up one man short in protection. And though it wasn't a sack, Purdy basically threw into the blitz because he didn't think they were going to blitz right there. So that's a prime example of that. A lot of stuff that they do personnel-wise with Chenal, putting him at edge, putting him at a 3 technique. He's bringing out some old
Yeah,
Landry.
I don't know anything about defense, but Leo Chenal is like, I'm like, wow, if I did know a lot about defense, that guy would be awesome to coach because it feels like he just is like so down
Anything.
to do whatever. He's like, I'll come in and play fullback on offense, coach. I just you wind me up and let me go. He seems like he just is a ball player.
He's part of, and people will probably forget this, but Jim Leonard, when he was the defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, had him, Herbig, Sanborn, all on the same team. And they had 4 of these guys. 3 of them are in the NFL right now playing. And they were able to do anything on defense because they had those 4 guys. They could blitz. They could drop into coverage. They could rush as edge rushers. And I think that's where that defense was special. And then you look at it now and all these guys, Sanborn's probably going to get his shot to be a starter for the Cowboys. You've got obviously what Chenal's able to do. Like I said, he's bringing out Landry, the old Landry, flex 3 stuff where he's essentially lined up at 3 technique and he over the guard and he can move with anything. So to me, that's where that creative piece comes in, is he knows how to move his guys around too and what they do really, really well and gets them in situations that they feel comfortable, which means that they're going to make plays.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of coming back to the personnel discussion. I was just thinking like how this stuff impacts the NFL draft. And you mentioned it with Emanwari. I also just want this take on the record so I can go back for this posterity. There's a guy named Nick Harbor at South Carolina who is teammates with him who moved to offense. He's like the all-time RAS guy. Like he literally, when he goes to the NFL draft, there's gonna be 10 RAS. I think he seems to be bad on offense. He has like no ball tracking or whatever. Someone's gonna turn him into a safety, and he's gonna be incredible. Neither here nor there, but I just want that on the record. So in terms of evaluating defensive players now, are you, if you were, scouting for whoever, I don't know, the Seahawks, whatever, you're looking at like, man, is there edge rusher who I think can like drop back sometime? Like, oh, he weighs 247 and I can send him in the flats or whatever. Or I got a 208-pound corner, but I think I could get him in the building, feed him some food, get him to 220, and he can be my third safety and my third, my nickel corner or whatever. Like, are you almost valuing more traits, like the ability to do 3 things over like one super elite trait?
I think at the top of the draft, you go off of what they can do, which is, okay, this is a boundary corner. We're going to draft him in the top 10 and all he's going to do is play corner. I think Witherspoon is a little bit interesting because, he went 5. People forget he can play outside corner. Speaking of the Seattle, what they're trying to do with the kid from South Carolina, they're trying to put him outside more. So I think like at the front end, you want it to like, hey, this guy is coming in to do this specific role. He's going to play at a premium position where we're going to pay him a premium deal, because you're not drafting a nickel at 5, which ironically, that's what Seattle did. I think too, as we get later on down, I need to be able to add value somewhere. I think this is why so many people had a hard time with Jalen Walker, was because, okay, well, what are we going to do with him? Right? Like, is he going to play off ball? Is he going to play down? Where are we going to go with that? I think you have to have a plan now. You can't just be, I think too, one of the biggest trends right now in the NFL is just being multiple. Okay. If you're a 4 down front, great. Do you have an odd package that you can get into? If you can keep the same personnel on, like Frankie Louvu, for instance, was an all-pro last year, basically played half of his snaps at edge. Right. Okay, so do we have a guy like that? Can we map this out for him? So I do think now more than ever, like once we get to the middle part of the first round, we're looking for traits. Can you do certain things? I think also, like you said, hey, this corner is a really big kid. Is he physical though? Because what you don't want is like Reek Woolen cannot play your nickel. Right. He don't want to really tackle that much, even though he's a massive human being. He wants to just play outside and play corner. Okay, well, we can't put him at nickel. You have to be able to fit the run. Maybe we have a kid that's a little maybe slower. Maybe, hey, I don't think he can really run some of these track meets that we're seeing on the outside, but man, he's physical. We can put him inside. He also has really good change of direction. Maybe we can put him inside. He's really cerebral, so he can understand motions and zones and how they interlock with each other. So to me, I think that's where it is too. I think the other thing too is anymore, you have to be, there are not a lot of dumb jocks playing football anymore. There's very few of them anymore where it's just like, I only play man coverage. I only rush the quarterback. Because if you're that guy, you're not going to last very long, because they're not going to waste.
Unless you're really, 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 really good.
Unless you're
right?
an alien. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's always an asterisk, but for the most part, these guys that, like you said, 10 RAS, but they can't figure it out. Like, okay, well, if you're going to be safety anymore, you got to play back and you got to play deep and near the box. You got to understand leverages. You got to understand motions. You got to understand coverage checks. Well, if you're bogging that guy down, then it's going to make it really difficult for him to really lean into those traits that he has.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think of football as being a thinking man's game, because obviously, like, in the hierarchy of the way people talk about American sports, it's like so not. But sports are like all sports. Everything is just so technical and nuanced and tactical. I don't understand I don't understand anything about hockey. Like, I love to watch it.
Right.
It's great, but like tactically it's like I got no idea what's going on. But I'm sure there's a hockey tactics podcast that exists that has 250,000 listeners per
Yes.
episode or whatever, and like soccer is like a brutally simple game. 11 there aren't plays, it's not, you just run. And like, man, I could just think about the way those 11 players arrange themselves. And it's like that obviously should happen for football, because it's like there's so much more inputs into the given play. And it is just so funny to think of like explaining to, I don't know, Don Terry Poe. It's just the first name I pulled. It's like you
Well,
wouldn't.
yes. To your point though, like if you talk to anybody in football, the two rooms that you have usually the most trouble in are your interior defensive linemen and your corners. And that's usually where your guys are that are like the absolute just
Well,
freaks.
interior defensive linemen, they've just gotten by on being freaks, and then the corners are like wide receivers, but they're corners. They're divas. They're like, you can't tell me nothing. Put me on an island with Terrell
Yep.
Owens. Terrell Owens ain't coming down with nothing against me. Yeah, absolutely classic. It's so funny. Uh, let's see. Oh, okay. I want to talk about the penny packages, which
Okay.
actually I pulled this from a Field Vision article here, but these are the hybrid fronts that basically have it's kind of the Leo Chanel thing. It's using your linebackers but putting them on the line to disguise. I mean,
Yes.
that feels devious. Like, that is just like, I don't know, like, what do you even do with that as a quarterback? Like, how am I diagnosing what I think this defender in the gap is going to do I guess that's like probably a lot of the RPO stuff is you wait to see what the fake or not
Right.
fake down lineman does and then respond from there.
Well, I think to your point, so we go all the way back to our conversation about highly curated play calling. Well, if I get, okay, I know they're in nickel. These are the coverages. These are the blitzes. This is what this guy has traditionally done. These are my play calls that I'm going to play in front of that. Well, okay, I'm expecting a 4 down front. Here's our runs that we like against a 4 down front. All of a sudden, Frankie Louvu walks down. They shift over. Now they're in an odd front. Now it changes our blocking schemes. It changes our protections. Now everything's different. And so now I've got to now kind of figure out, okay, what play calls do I want to get into now? Now is the guy going to blitz? Is he going to drop out? I think that's now it starts where kind of that whole where McVay was able to kind of supercharge everything because he plays only 11 personnel. Defenses are like, well, we can do the same thing. And so now I go back to that schematic fluidity of where our whole playbook, we don't lose anything when we go into a sub package. We can run the whole thing. One time I can have a true penny package where we have 3 interior defensive linemen, 2 edges, one inside linebacker, and we have our nickel personnel out there in the secondary. Well, we can run that, but then the next time we come out, I can get in nickel and we can do the exact same thing. I can run every play from that playbook on through, but you can't dictate to me who's going to be on the field and what we're going to do. And so I think that allows the defense to have a little bit more nuance, but also a couple more answers because I don't have to be very package specific.
It's just, yeah, remaining multiple, man.
Right.
And it's, it's kind of harder to remain multiple on offenses because guys have more dialed in skill sets. Like you hear the stuff every year. Oh, we're gonna use Tony Pollard as a slot wide receiver. Watch us, we'll do it. Closest thing is 2 teams with 2 really good tight ends,
Yeah.
2 tight ends who can run real wide receiver style routes. I wonder if we see Chip Kelly do some of this stuff with the Raiders, have Michael Mayer as the inline guy. Because Michael Mayer, I mean, he's not Rob Gronkowski, but I don't know, man. He might be about as good as like Kate Otten or something.
Right.
Like Mike Myers is a really good tight end, and obviously Bowers is just like a total freak. You can use
Yep.
him vertically as a tight. This has been my thing for like 2 years now. Is I'm just waiting for some team to just go all in on like we're at we got 2 first-round tight ends. We're paying $32 million a year for 2 tight ends because we think 12 personnel, if done correctly, can just put defensive coordinators in absolute jail. Like they don't know. Bring a linebacker in to counter like we don't know what to do. I think a really great 12 personnel is kind of like the next big innovation.
No, I 100% agree with you. I think the Raiders, the Bears, and the Chiefs are probably prime for this. You look at them. The Buccaneers have been running 12 personnel. I know it's not with like they don't have an F and a Y. They have 2 Ys essentially, but they've been doing a lot of really good thing. With Cohen. So I think to me, it makes a lot of sense to me that 12 personnel, you have an F and you have a Y, and now we can do a bunch of different things. It really lends itself back to what Shanahan was trying to do with 21 personnel. The Dolphins, when they have everybody healthy, are really difficult to defend too because they're in 21 personnel. Vikings can get into 21 personnel. These are offenses that, now even with the 49ers, like we can go empty and we'll find you. If you're in base, we're going to go empty. We'll just get spread. We'll put, not anymore, but we can put Debo back into the backfield. Now you've got a corner sitting there at Mike linebacker because you're trying to play matchup defense. Like, no, I think to me, I'm excited. Not as a Broncos fan, but like I am excited as a football fan to see kind of what the Raiders are going to look like with that 2 tight ends. Cause I think like that to me makes a lot of sense.
It just seems so evident. The Vikings, Josh Oliver and Hawkinson, the issue is like Oliver is not nearly as good
Right.
of a route runner. And I mean the Chiefs, like Noah Gray's fine. He's not, Travis Kelce, he is not. The Ravens likely,
Yeah.
and I mean
They're a
that's a
good
team that
example too.
benefits so much from heavy personnel. But it's just like it basically takes away what the defense is trying to do with the multiplicity. It's like, all right, man, go cover Mark Andrews with a. Well, I mean, you cover Mark Andrews as a linebacker, he's going to dust you. You cover
Yeah,
Mark Andrews as a
right. You're in
corner, and
trouble.
just get,
You got to play.
you're
You got to
in
play your
trouble.
sub package. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the Ravens are difficult too because you go sub package and then they run right at you with Derrick Henry, and then they have the quarterback run game with if you try to load the box with Lamar, and it's just like that offense is just brutal. If they can just find like. I know they gave Bateman an extension, but it's like if they can just and a lot of people like Flowers, but it's like man, if they can just get like a primo receiver, that offense, no one wants a piece of that.
Yeah, no disrespect to Zay Flowers, but I agree. All right, last thing here that I think is it's like, okay, so we spent the last year talking about Vic Fangio and the Tampa 2 and shell coverages and everything. Well, what is going to be the new discussion on match quarters and of people who are obsessed with defense? Like, is there some really cool system coming from college? Like, is someone running some crazy 2 down linemen, 7 defensive back? We have as linebackers. Our front 5 is actually all linebackers. Like, there's always. I love college football, man. You just
Yes.
never know. You never know what you're gonna find. You turn on some action on a Tuesday night, like you could just be seeing anything. People are just experimenting. So, what are some of the trends that you think? Like, what do you think some of the we're just crazy defensive alignment. Like what is the defensive story going to be in 2025?
Yeah. So, and actually, just I'll plug this here. I do a podcast. Let's Talk Ball podcast. It drops every Wednesday. We will be
Link,
talking about.
link to that is in the description of this.
Yes, we will be talking about this. Basically, what we are going to have a 3-high revolution in the NFL. It's just not going to be the Iowa State defense. That it's not going to look like it did at college. We're not going to odd stack. I do think teams like the Cardinals have been ahead of the game. Seattle tried to do some things. They had problems with injuries. Chargers did a lot of stuff on 3rd down with 3-high defenses with a 4-down package. Essentially what you saw from Ohio State, but kind of NFL based where we're going to run from a 3-high package, not necessarily on early downs. I think with the Cardinals, what you saw is it's basically build a 3-4 with Buda Baker as kind of your weak side inside linebacker, doing different rotations to get into things. But I think the 3 high defenses, especially with 3 safeties, it also lends itself. We were talking about Spags. 4 safeties on the field in their dime package, it's really difficult for you to run an 11 personnel because we have 2 safeties that know how to fit the run. But then also I can do all of my coverage disguises, which is another trend in the NFL of, we were at almost 30% coverage disguise last year. I don't see it going down. I see it only going up as more people do that. So to me, the 3 high, I think there's a shift back to 4 down defenses. It's kind of the same evolution, to be honest with you, with what you got from Georgia at the college level. They were trying to be that tight front, mint front stuff all the time. And then they realized, well, our pass rush is going down. We can't rush the passer. So we need to go, let's beef up our interior defensive linemen, which they've done. And there's like a million of them now in the NFL. And then we're going to play more 4 down, but we're going to really be able to control the inside because we now have interior defensive linemen. So I think that is the other thing, because now my edges can really rush the passer. So I think that combination of 4 down, more movement to 4 down, but again, we've talked about this, being able to be multiple, walking a guy down, putting a guy in a weird spot to really get into some of these odd spacing, which just means we're clogging the B gaps. That to me are the 2 major trends. We talked about hybrid players, adding value. The last thing that I think you're going to see is more blitzing on early downs. I think with what the Vikings were able to do, what the Broncos were able to do on early downs, the Buccaneers were trying to get to it last year. They just didn't. Their linebacker play was not very good, but they're changing. It used to be first down, you just play base defense. Now, if I can win early, I can win late. So I got to win first down to win third instead of, I know that sounds counterintuitive because for fans and everybody, you only ever hear about, well, what's your third down win rate, right? Like how are you getting off the field? Well, how do you get off the field? You win first down. I'm going to put you in a predictable passing situation. Now I can do all of my padding and attack your protections. We can stay in our sub package. So if I want to stay in a sub package, I got to win on first, which I think that is only reason why you're going to see more blitzing on first down.
Sack is as good as an interception, basically. Sack's like 0.5 of an interception. You put a team in 2nd and 17, you're probably getting the ball back. Well, frankly, I hope that you guys have lots to talk about on the Let's Talk Ball podcast, and I hope it's you guys pulling your hair out saying these defensive coordinators are lost. They can't stop. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. My God, the Jacksonville Jaguars are the 19th best offense in the NFL, and they're throwing for 320 yards per game. I would love, you know what? Not even 2020, Cody. I'd love a redo of the 2011 NFL season when like any quarterback with a pulse was throwing for 5,000 yards. I would love a return to that. I don't think we're going to see it. I think there's a lot of complex reasons for it, but I do like knowing more about the game. And if you guys want to know more about the game, you can listen to Cody on the Let's Talk Ball podcast. You have 20,000 different orderable books/PDFs on match quarters right now. So there's lots of information that you guys can gain there. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Check out Cody's stuff over at Match Quarters, and we will be back next week.